my weight my entire life.
All right, we're live in Vegas tonight. By the way, the president is beginning to touch down as he's coming to this rally where we're broadcasting from at the convention center here in Vegas. Now, Fox News has just learned moments ago that Kavanaugh's accuser, Professor Ford, through her attorneys, has now issued a new list of terms for any, quote, congressional testimony. Among the new terms, we can report she only wants members of the committee, no lawyers to question her. Kavanaugh cannot be in the room, and Kavanaugh must be questioned first. Joining us now with reaction here in Vegas, author of the #1 New York Times bestseller, The Russia Hoax, the illicit scheme to clear Hillary Clinton, frame Donald Trump. Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett, author of the New York Times bestseller, #1 bestseller, Liars, Leakers, and Liberals, the case against the anti-Trump conspiracy. She's the host of Justice Judge Hannity Bureau. You guys both are like battling it out week after week for #1 on the New York Times list. It's hilarious to me.
It couldn't happen to two better people, right, Greg?
Agree.
What a great crowd out here.
Yeah, they are fabulous, yes.
They are great.
I was crowd surfing.
Oh, yeah.
Fun.
It's fun.
All right.
All right. So originally, this is a great crowd. So originally they said, well, we want an FBI investigation. FBI says that's not what they do. Not a fair. Okay.
Right.
Then earlier today we're hearing all these other well, we don't want people that disagree with us. Now we've got a new set of terms. The lawyer Katz for Professor Ford, she didn't believe Paula Jones. She actually stood up for that creep Al Franken. So it's political. None of these people that are attacking here, Judge Kavanaugh, none of them have gone after Keith Ellison, the #2 at the DNC, a congressman. Doesn't that prove the hypocrisy?
Well, it not only proves the hypocrisy, but since when does truth and justice or guilt or innocence depend upon your political party? I fear for this nation when this is now the standard. You believe any woman who goes against a Republican, and you don't believe a woman who goes against a Democrat.
Judge, what would happen? You saw the MoveOn.org ad. We believe you. Your story is credible. Now, I don't know what happened, and neither do they.
Right.
All right, but it's a serious allegation. Rightly, the president has taken it seriously. The Senate Judiciary Committee has taken it seriously. They're trying to accommodate Professor Ford every way they can. Right. I agree with that.
Of course.
But if there was an ad that said, you're credible, Judge Kavanaugh, we believe you, what would the reaction be?
Well, they'd hit the ceiling, Sean. I mean, you know that the contradiction in this country right now is beyond anything I've ever seen. I worry for the country. I don't want these people to sit on juries. It's no longer about the facts or truth and justice. It's about politics. And this is a sad state of affairs.
You know, everything sadly gets politicized. There was a rush to judgment in Ferguson, Missouri.
Right.
Even Obama got involved. Or the Cambridge police, a rush to judgment. Freddie Gray, Baltimore. Trayvon Martin. Meanwhile, thousands of unnamed people were getting shot and killed in Chicago. They never got talked about because it wasn't political. Why are people willing to throw out due process, equal justice under the law, and the presumption of innocence?
Because they're overzealous to the point that they've really lost their common sense. I'll give you an example. United States Senator Kirsten Gillibrand of New York stood in front of television cameras the other day and said of the accuser, I believe her, I believe what she said. It has the ring of truth.
She shouldn't even have to answer a question.
That's right. Now, forget the fact that Gillibrand went to law school. She must have slept through presumption of innocence. But here she is representing the people, and she's concluding on camera that the accuser is telling the truth when Gillibrand has never met the accuser, never spoken to the accuser, has never heard from her lips the story that is alleged.
Why won't they even release the letter they got in July?
Right.
They're not even giving the unredacted version to the Republicans on the committee or the chairman even.
I think an even bigger problem, Sean, is the fact that you had a woman who went to high school with the alleged victim who said it absolutely did happen. And then when she was put to the test, she said, well, I just felt empowered that it happened, but I don't know that it did.
I don't have any facts.
This this is worrisome. It means that people will make up stories.
Didn't they say that this came out for the first time in couples therapy in 2012?
Yeah, and what was that about? And when was the first time Kavanaugh's name came up? And what about, is this a hypnosis? Is this confabulation? This is all stuff that is contrary to what the law calls for.
If they cared about the issue, her attorney would have supported Paula Jones. Her attorney would be speaking out against Keith Ellison.
Yep.
Her attorney wouldn't have defended Al Franken. And this is the point. Kirsten Gillibrand and Camille Harris and all these people, Blumenthal from Connecticut, they wouldn't be saying, I believe her. Well, why don't you say you believe Keith Ellison's girlfriend who says she was beaten and abused by the #2 at the DNC?
Nobody knows the truth of what happened, which is why
and Dianne Feinstein said it and got excoriated.
Which is why it's important, and we do this in public jury trials, to hear from the lips of the accuser and, if he wants, the accused. And Kavanaugh is more than willing to testify, but I'm baffled by the demands of the accuser now, who is saying, oh, I want him to testify first. That's backwards. In a court of law, it's always the accuser that first testifies to allow the defendant to be able to respond to her allegations. How can you respond to something
Should they give in to these new demands? Because the demands keep shifting and changing.
No. Senator Grassley and the Judiciary Committee should try to regain control of these proceedings. Their constitutional duty is to advise and consent. It is not.
If you care about women, this is what,
right.
And I do. If you care, then you have an open mind. It's a serious allegation.
Absolutely.
Wait for all sides to be heard. But you also got to look at the 40 intervening years. And again, I go back to Ellison. That's August.
Well, wait a minute.
They're not saying a word.
John,
that shows.
It's not just time. With Ellison, there is immediate outcry. There are photographs. There are injuries.
A doctor's
there are
report.
Witnesses. There are videos. We have facts. And that, look, I've prosecuted these crimes for 30 years. It's what I did for 30 years.
I know.
You've got to be able to support an allegation.
You start when you're 5?
Here's the problem.
No.
They are willing to destroy a man and his reputation for a woman they know nothing other than her allegation and her politics.
You know what's sad? All I see is this rush to judgment. I believe her, and I see this man who wants to serve his country. He may be innocent, and his family has to hear that he's guilty.
But he has done
They're saying he's guilty. That is mob rule.
It is
that
mob
is not
rule, and this is a man who has spent his life in support of truth and justice and this nation.
That's not
and law
what
and
this.
order.
That's not how this country works.
No, absolutely. You know, everybody should actually be presumed innocent until an accuser steps forward and actually speaks. We need to judge the credibility of Dr.
And maybe
Ford.
the 40 years, the women that knew him at the time in high school and college and law school,
right.
The people in the Bush administration, the female law clerks that served under them, the people he works with now, they all tell a very different story.
All of this has been mishandled, and that can be laid at the feet of Senator Dianne Feinstein. She knew about this 6 weeks ago and sat on it, did nothing about it, had ample opportunity to bring it up. Her explanation makes no common sense.
All right, Vegas, you like these guys? They're really good friends. #1 New York Times bestsellers. All right, thank you both. Great job. When we come back, huge breaking news. This is big, an explosive report. John Solomon has been reporting on the ongoing scandal that's unfolding at the FBI, intelligence community, the very highest levels of the Justice Department even. John Solomon, Sarah Carter, both have stories out tonight. John's story in The Hill, it says FBI memos detail partisan axes, secret conflicts behind the Russian election meddling assessment. Sarah Carter's piece out today, and it says FBI memos raise deep questions about Russia, Trump, intel assessment. All right, joining us now, she is here with us in Vegas, Sarah Carter. The Hill's John Solomon was invited, but he declined our invitation to come and hang out with our crowd in Vegas. I know. Sarah, let's start with you. Let's talk about what this means.
I think what we're seeing here with these new developments, Sean, both the text messages and the emails of Strzok and Page, is that the intelligence community itself was divided. Remember, everybody had assumed for the last 2 years that they were all on the same page about the fact that the Russians meddled in the election to help President Trump win. And now what we found through these text messages and these emails, that is not what they were saying at all. In fact, the FBI did not believe at that point that they had evidence enough to say that, to publicly say that, but the assessment did stick with that premise.
And Lisa Page's testimony months later, 9 months in, they didn't have any evidence, but, and this is where we'll throw it to John, in your report, John, you say that they actually were afraid because the administration of Barack Obama wanted a narrative and they wanted to believe the worst so they could push it out and use intelligence as a weapon against Donald Trump. Am I framing that right?
Yeah, that's certainly the inference in the text messages. Anyone who said there isn't politics in the intelligence community ought to read these emails and read these text messages. They're talking about partisan axes being sharpened at the very end of the Obama administration, right as the Russia intelligence report is being crafted and written and about to be released to the public, about to be briefed to Trump and to Obama. They talk about politics. They talk about not trusting the DNI, James Clapper. These are very serious things, a dysfunctional intelligence community, it seems like. But there are two factual things that are important. I think Sarah hit on one already. Pete Strzok writes in an email that you can't just say for sure, singularly, that Russia's intention was to help swing the election to Trump, that there's a combination of factors, and we can't say for sure any one of them was the motive. That's very different than what we've heard. Secondly, there's a reference in one of the text messages that the secret information, the classified information that the FBI had, was different than the intelligence community's sort of public narrative. Those things have to be investigated further. I know Congress is looking at them, but those are two factual points amidst the politics.
So you literally have a conflict within the intelligence communities, but they know that the administration wants to weaponize it as a tool really to bludgeon Trump and advance a false narrative, Sarah.
Yeah, not only did they want to do that, but we know on the FBI side that they had the dossier, right? And the dossier was intentionally added to the assessment, right? The intelligence assessment. And they used that dossier to propagate disinformation about the president.
So when we really get to the bare bones of this, not only did they exonerate Hillary, but then it got worse. She pays funnels of money, Fusion GPS, Foreign National, lies in a dossier. The lies are used and disseminated before the election to destroy Trump. Then they weaponize it after. This is the insurance policy.
That's right.
Well, but tonight, it now gets right into the Oval Office. We're getting very close to what did Obama want. He wanted the phony narrative.
That's right. He wanted the phony narrative. And in their own text, in their own words, Peter Strzok's words, the White House was going to eat this up. They were going to eat this assessment alive because, one, it didn't reflect on them. They could push it off to the FBI, but the White House could use the dossier and the assessment as a weapon against President Trump.
And John, they were even afraid to give him the information because it wasn't verified, corroborated, because they knew that it would be politicized. In other words, intelligence politicized as a weapon against their opponents.
That's really the inference, and what troubles you most when you read these things. They're talking about political axes. They're talking about politics. It's all political. They're worried about this intelligence being disseminated far enough so that a lame duck intelligence community, the Obama apparatus, might misuse it. It's very telling how concerned these FBI agents were and how reluctant they were to put more information into the apparatus at that very moment when power was changing hands. This has to be looked at more closely with Congress. More people have to be answered. We have some breaking news tonight about Nellie Orr and James Baker. The committees in the House wanted to get a voluntary agreement. That's fallen apart. It sounds like we're going to need subpoenas to get their stories.
Quick last word.
Yeah, they're going to need subpoenas, and the president next week is going to declass those documents.
Get them next week, we think.
We think we're getting them next week. And look, the president's going to get some pushback, but he's going to push back on them, and the American people are going to get the truth, and they're going to get the documents. That's the most important.
Great work, both of you. You deserve Pulitzer Prizes, the two of you. John Solomon, Sarah Carter with us in Vegas. All right, when we come back, we got a live report from Washington. President expected in this building, and I have an interview with him and our... All right, as we continue, we're live in Vegas. You all having a good time? Got a great crowd. Momentarily, we expect the president is going to be right here in this building on this set. And by the way, but live from D.C. first with an update on the Kavanaugh confirmation. Fox News Washington correspondent Kristen Fisher has the latest details tonight. Kristen.
Hey, Sean, well, if the hearing happens, Judge Kavanaugh says he will be there on Monday to testify. In a letter tonight to the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Kavanaugh says, I continue to want a hearing as soon as possible so that I can clear my name. So the question now is, will his accuser show up? Her lead attorney sent a letter to the committee this afternoon saying that she wishes to testify, provided that we can agree on terms that are fair and which ensure her safety. A hearing on Monday, though, is not possible. Right now, negotiations are ongoing, and two sources have confirmed to Fox that Christine Blasey Ford's legal team is insisting on three key things. First, no lawyers can do the questioning, only members of the committee. Second, Kavanaugh cannot be in the room. And finally, Kavanaugh must go first. Noticeably absent, though, from that list is one of their initial demands for a full investigation first, then a hearing, which Democrats have agreed with.
We have to get to the bottom of this as Americans before we put someone on the Supreme Court for life.
But Republicans say the committee's offered to let her testify in whatever setting makes her feel the most comfortable, either a public or private hearing, and they believe that that should be enough.
Ultimately, if that doesn't happen, number one, she shouldn't be criticized for not doing it. Number two, we can't force her and we shouldn't try to. But then the Senate has to move forward based on the information we have before us.
Either way, regardless of whether or not this hearing on Monday actually happens, the White House remains very confident that Kavanaugh will still be confirmed as the next Supreme Court justice. But boy, Sean, it is getting ugly on both sides.
All right, Kristen Fisher in Washington, thank you for that report. By the way, the president is going to sit down with us in just about a minute or two, so we're told. When he does, we'll bring it live. Joining us now with reaction, author of the new book, Spygate, The Attempted Sabotage of Donald J. Trump, former Secret Service agent, NRA TV contributor, and friend of the program, Dan Bongino, and former White House press secretary, a man that's been in a lot of fights and fires himself. Ari Fleischer is with us. Ari, you know Judge Kavanaugh. We've heard described a very different man by people that knew him from high school, through the Bush administration, through the time he's been a judge. It's got to be very troubling. You knew him personally, know him personally. What are your thoughts on all of this?
Well, you know, I served with Brett in the White House, and this is not Brett Kavanaugh. This is just doesn't make any sense to me that Brett would ever act like that. It's not his nature. It's not his personality. And so this whole thing comes as quite the shock to me. And I think Brett is chomping at the bit to go before judiciary and say this wasn't him. He never did any of these things. That's what he said already. And I think he can't wait to say it for the country to watch it.
I think it's right to take it seriously. The president has shown the proper seriousness of it. The Senate Judiciary Committee, Republicans have. If anybody's not been serious here, Dan Bongino, it's been people like Dianne Feinstein. They had this in July. Even tonight, still, they have not shared the unredacted letter that she got back in July. And the fact that they don't criticize Keith Ellison, the #2 at the DNC, recent allegations, not 36 years ago.
Yes, Sean, you're right. They should be taken seriously, and they have been. It's the Democrats that continue to move the goalposts here. There are two things that jump out to me. Number one, why would you demand that Brett Kavanaugh go first? Brett Kavanaugh is defending himself and needs to counter these allegations. How's he going to counter the allegations if he doesn't know what the allegations are? And secondly, the prior demands for an FBI investigation. I did backgrounds when I was a federal agent. They do not do criminal backgrounds. They do criminal history backgrounds. They're completely different. This is not a criminal investigation. They're setting up a bunch of obstacles they know that the Republicans can't possibly meet.
Unbelievable. You know, look, if we're going to do this, I see the list of demands that they've been changing. At first, the attorney, who's very political, the attorney didn't believe Paula Jones. The attorney, Ms. Katz, also defended Al Franken. That she's donated, you know, tens of thousands of dollars to Democrats, which is fine, Ari, but she's not consistent on the issue. Nor is Kristen Gillibrand or Camille Harris or all the people that supported Bill Clinton all these years. Juanita Broderick very profoundly tweeted out this week, where's my FBI investigation?
This does show the undying hypocrisy of the Democrats on this. And frankly, I think what's motivating Democrats in the Senate is not justice and not right and wrong. It's the protection of senators in red states who are up for re-election where Donald Trump has won those states. That's what's motivating the Democrats here, is to push this back beyond the election cycle, which is why Dianne Feinstein sat on this, which is why it's an 11th hour demand, which is why they seek to delay the hearings with every step they can take. And that's what probably is going on now with these negotiations. Remember, we're not hearing from Dr. Ford. We're hearing from the lawyers who are Democratic donors about what they say the ground rules must be. This is all designed, it seems to me, to protect those Democrats so they don't have to take the hard vote before the election.
Dianne Feinstein said today, Dan Bongino, she actually said today, oh, we didn't leak the information. Well, the only people that had the letter were Democrats. So It wasn't a Republican that leaked the information. Do you think they did it on purpose? This is part of... And did they do it maybe even against the wishes of Professor Ford? And what did that tell you about it?
That's an interesting question, Sean. I mean, the Democrats have certainly not been cryptic about their strategy. I mean, you've even seen Senator Hirono come out and say, hey, we could leave this seat empty for 2 years. And now I'm seeing some trial balloons floated that if Kavanaugh is in fact appointed, every case considered in front of the Kavanaugh Supreme Court then would be considered illegitimate. So this is a lose-lose. And it's time for the Republicans to stand up and say, listen, we've given you multiple opportunities. We've taken these charges very seriously. We've given you multiple avenues to testify. We want to hear your story, but if you don't want to be heard and you want to lay out a bunch of insurmountable conditions for us, then it's going to be difficult for us to hear what you have to say. But no more delays. They've got to take this vote.
You know, they're now saying that they want Ari. They're actually now saying that they have these conditions. Kavanaugh has to go first. Why wouldn't Judge Kavanaugh have the ability to respond to her accusations? And should Senator Grassley, by the way, I think they were very accommodating, which I thought was appropriate. Private, public, will come to you if need be, if you're more comfortable. Why do they get to dictate? I would think the logical thing is she speaks, and then Judge Kavanaugh, who's being accused, gets to respond.
Of course, that's how it should be. That's called justice. And that's how our court systems works, and that's how basic fairness works. If somebody has an accusation to make, and in this case, Professor Ford should be entitled that right to make the accusation. Now, witnesses don't get to determine the rules of the United States Senate. Senators do. And there's a bipartisan process for these things. And that's where the accuser in this instance goes first, makes the case, and then in this case, Judge Kavanaugh would have the ability to listen, not necessarily from the same room. I agree with Professor Ford's lawyers on that. He shouldn't be in the room. But then he would come in and he'd be in a position to answer the questions, rebut the charges, having heard them. If he hasn't heard them, there's no fairness to the process. He needs to hear them first. And I think Chairman Grassley has already indicated the Senate is not going to go along with letting her go second. They're going to do it the standard way. The accuser goes first.
You know, Dan Bongino, it's such a serious accusation. I also believe that we should be hearing from people that have known Judge Kavanaugh since high school, college, law school, etc. I think that would be fair.
Yeah, Sean, in my experience working criminal cases for most of my adult life, usually this is not the type of incident, given the seriousness of the charges, that just randomly presents itself out of nowhere, Sean. There's typically a fact pattern in the past, a pattern of behavior, some corroborating witness and say this happened to me as well at some other point. You just don't see this with Kavanaugh, and he's entitled to defend himself. And I just think it's odd, again, that they want Ms. Ford, you know, to be able, Kavanaugh to go first. It's very strange.
You know, Ari, sorry, there's actually some amazing music playing in the background. We expect the president is coming in the building. All right, so I've just been told that the president is walking in now and he's going to sit down with us. And Laura Ingraham has graciously agreed to give us a little bit of her time tonight, and we love her for it. Because the president, his detail just came and gave us a 2-minute warning that he's walking in 2 minutes. Okay. Let me go to Ari in the meantime. Go ahead. Yes, sir. Ari.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Sean. I didn't catch your question.
You know, Ari, we've watched all of this happen before. We've seen it happen with Judge Bork. We've seen it happen with Clarence Thomas. Now it's happening again. Just like every 2 or 4 years, Republicans are racist, sexist, misogynistic, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic. So it's out of their playbook.
And this gets to the core question about why did Dianne Feinstein sit on this information. I think she sat on it because she wanted to take advantage of pushing this back beyond the election, and so she waited to the last minute. If you are a United States senator and you get a letter like the one that she got, you have a constitutional obligation as a senator who has the power of advice and consent to immediately confront, to go to Judge Kavanaugh and say, this is what I've been told. Is it true? She failed to take any of those basic constitutional actions.
Right.
So you have to forgive Republicans when they say, we smell politics here. Now, that might not be the case for Professor Ford, but it certainly is the case for the Democrats in the Senate.
They're being fair and taking it seriously. All right, we're going to leave it. Laura Ingram's been very gracious, gave us an extra minute of time, but the president is walking in. He's coming right up to the set.